to go a-wandering along the mountain track. And as I go, I love to sing my knapsack on my back. Marie,
Woods and Waters with your host, Bud Leavitt.
Well, a cookbook. Gonna tell you about that. This is a good one. Brand new. Been waiting for this for some time. Well, we got a couple of good men here tonight. Good Maine men. Win Robbins of Farmingdale, Maine. University of Maine, vintage 1927. Great football player. I saw him as a child. I was only a child. Now, wait a minute. Now, don't jump at me yet, Win. Probably a man has climbed more mountains than any living man alive. Climbed Mount Katahdin 100 times, and he's 82 years old. He's put up ski lifts all over New England. He's been a tough baby in case a guy wanted to operate his lift, and Win said no until this thing is ready to go. And then Rob Graham is here, and we're going to talk about the new Great Outdoors Cookbook, a publication of the Maine Professional Guides Association, out just now, brand new, in fact, just in time for Christmas. Well, Mr. Robbins, for a long time I've wanted you on here. I remember you when you weighed 158 pounds, and you, what were you then? How much? When you sent it at the University of Maine?
158 pounds in the middle of a 200-pound line.
And you still weigh 158 pounds.
Still weigh 158.
What was it like playing football back then?
A little different than it is now. And you went both ways.
Defense and offense.
Defense and offense.
Who was the biggest center you ever went against?
A boy down in Yale that weighed 200 and some odd pounds, and he stepped on my little toe and broke it.
Really? You got a broken toe out of it?
That's right. Yeah.
Who was on that team? Great names in Maine football.
Well, there was Jim Buzzell, Pat Peaks,
Oh, boy.
Ed Buzzell.
Mike Coltart was on?
Mike Coltart, yeah.
That's a great team. Never mind.
Jack Moran from Brewer.
Yeah, that's right. Jack was later sports editor of the News.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
You guys played hard-nosed football, didn't you?
Straightforward. Yeah.
How
Straightforward.
many men did Fred Bryce have in the squad then?
Oh, I think if it was 25 or 30 men, it was a big squad.
When you went down to play Yale, they expected to run all over you, didn't they?
That's right.
Well,
90-degree weather, heavy clothes. It was a tough one.
that was tough in those days. Two-way football.
L.B. Booth was quarterback.
L.B. Booth was a quarterback, and then, boy, what a name in Yale.
That's right.
Tell me about mountain climbing. First, let's talk about the ski industry business. You've been the inspector general, so to speak, of all of these lifts all over Maine, and your career has taken you. How much have we advanced, Win, since the days of the rope tow and the first chairlift and so forth?
The ski industry has just blossomed over the last 25 years. The rope tow was the baby. There was probably 100 rope tows throughout the state. Anybody that had a car or an old tractor and a pasture slope had a ski area. Then it advanced to the T-bar, then to the chairlift. And at the same time, the stylists got into this picture. And no longer you were skiing in old clothes. You got to the tight pants, and all of the goodies and so forth that went with that deal. Then the chairlift came in. And as the chairlift was developed, the small feeder areas began to fall. And now they are building quads at 800 feet a minute that slow down when you get on and slow down when you stop. And they are so highly computerized that I just quit inspecting. I wouldn't put my name on the line because it was too confusing.
Is skiing safer today than in the old days? I mean, is the inspection as tough today as it was 20 years ago?
The inspection is tougher, very much so, because as a result of accidents that have happened in Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont, the Eastern Ski Association, the manufacturers, the owners got together and established a tramway code that is now nationwide. And this code stipulates exactly what the brakes are to do, how they're to be built, how the lifts are to be built, how they are to be manned. And it is a far different inspection. And now lifts are inspected before they are opened, then they are inspected during operation.
How many times in the course of a season would an inspector inspect a major resort, let's say?
At least twice.
At least twice.
And then if there's an accident, then they will be inspected by several engineers.
What's the single most hazard, most dangerous one? Winds, high winds, or overuse and not proper maintenance?
You've hit all three of them. To begin with, the lifts are now in that 20-year age. Maintenance is a problem. Wind is a problem. Many areas in wind tunnels, they get winds of 25, 30, 35 miles an hour. It's not wise sometimes to be operating in a high wind because you get an action on your wire ropes that cause swinging of the chairs.
Did you ever have an occasion to tell a resort or an operator, you can't operate this lift today?
Yes.
What was the reaction?
There was a confrontation.
Was it? Mm-hmm.
But they realize that their insurance is a very important part. Mm-hmm. And if they don't comply with the code, your insurance rates go up. This is one reason today that your tickets are so expensive, because your insurance rates have gone very high because of the fact that so many suits occur as a result of a ski accident.
Well, this is Sugarloaf's 40th year in operation.
I know, I built the first lift.
Well, okay, you're jumping ahead of me now. Do you remember when Erlen and Amos Winter and Bob Bass and Horace Chapman and all you old rascals used to walk up there to ski down that is now the parking area?
Sure, sure.
Did you envision at any time that Sugarloaf would become a destination stop for ski?
Not at that time. Not at that time.
But what could you see about that mountain that looks so glorious?
The drop, the exposure,
vertical drop.
The vertical drop. Yeah. Yes, Amos and I spent a lot of time in that old mountain.
But really, it was discovered by Erlen, wasn't it?
No.
Now wait a minute. Now I got a little research on this.
You may have something on me.
Well, Erlen was a bobcat hunter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Erlen went up there one day.
Okay.
And he had a dog on a bobcat, and he ran the thing halfway up the mountain, and then come back and told Amos about it, and then they went up and looked at this terrain.
Yeah.
And but I always credited Erlen. I'd always kid Amos, only kidding him, of course.
Well, you have something on me because I always attributed Amos as the godfather of the mountain.
Well, that's right. He was kind of the motivator. But Erlen had been up there cat hunting, and that's how, I guess he came back and told Amos.
Amos was a tough old character.
Oh, boy. The only guy I know could dance all night and ski all day, right up to his last days.
Right.
What fascinates you about mountains? What catches you? All your life, you've done nothing but hike mountains.
Well, I guess the old story is because they're there, but there is a satisfaction to be in the high country. It's the air is clearer, your mind clears up, you're working. It's a pleasure to be out in the open.
You've probably done Katahdin 100 times in your life. This last time was when, September?
September.
Did you find it just as invigorating?
It was just, well, it was something that I wanted to get done. At 82, I wanted to get into Chimney Pond again. And I had better sense than to try to do the big mountain. My party was a group of doctors. I had my cardiologist with me and another general practitioner. They made it a very pleasant trip for me. But my cardiologist was a gentleman. When we got within 100 yards of Chimney Pond, I said, I used to smell smoke here when I took my parties in. He stepped off the trail and said, Win, take your parties in. That hurt.
Huh. Well, good advice.
Yep.
Good advice.
There's a man who I have been associated with for many years. He's climbed many mountains. And in fact, I started one.
Tell us briefly about Governor Baxter.
Governor Baxter came into the picture long after I was on the mountain. I started in 23. He had the vision, and starting in 1936, to put together the mountain. And through that period of time, over 30-odd years, he put together 201,000 acres of parkland that includes many, many peaks and many, many lakes. And he endowed it for its operation. And it was given to the people of the state of Maine. Now, I don't believe that he ever envisioned what is happening there today. He didn't envision I-95. He didn't envision the 40-hour week. He didn't envision the camp equipment which was developed as the result of World War II. The type of people and the ability to get to the mountain is so much easier than it was at the time he was putting this park together.
Mm-hmm.
When I went in the first time in 1923, it was 8 miles. You parked a car at Windy Pitch. It was 8 miles into the park. And not too many people were in there. At the first time I was in there, there were 2 log cabins, lean-tos, Dudley's Den and the Appalachian Mountain Club. Capacity of 6, well, capacity of the cabins were probably 6, but if you were friendly, you could probably get in 8. 16 would be a maximum number. Many, many times there was only 2 or 3 people in the mountain back in those times. Roy Dudley was the old guide who was there for many, many years. I made one trip with him in from over the old Stacyville Trail.
From Stacyville? 26
miles. But those trails are all gone today.
Mm-hmm.
The development of the mountain, the development of the type of equipment and the transportation has changed the mountain. The people who were going to the mountain when I started to go to the mountain were terminal climbers. They would go in and stay overnight or 2 or 3 nights because they wanted to be in that atmosphere. Now, one of our biggest problems is the fact that we have day use people who come in 3 or 4 to a car, fill the parking lot, go up the mountain and back in one day. Now, this does not add particularly to the governor's forever wild concept. So we are experiencing, same as the national park, we are experiencing overuse.
Well, I won't get into how do you control it. That comes down to managing people.
Let's not get into that problem.
Yeah,
It's sticky.
It is a sticky problem when you say no for a thing like that.
Sure.
But you've done a lot of work for Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, various service clubs and everything in your life. You've got to feel pretty good about that.
I think I've had an influence.
You've made a lot of big contributions, I'll say that.
Few people. Yes, I follow scouting.
But you, now Rob Graham, seated beside you, pointed out you were at McGundacook.
Well, I guided down to McGundacook Lake at McGundacook Camps, which had one of the finest programs for summer camp that I ever experienced. This camp's program was to teach boys how to camp. You just didn't take them out and turn them loose. They were taught canoeing, they were taught cooking, they were taught swimming, and they were brought into the planning program of taking trips. We decided we're going somewhere. We need a canoe, or a number of canoes. We need cooking utensils. We need food. We need tentage. Then you sat down and decided what your menu was. After you made your menu, you decided what you needed for food. And each of the boys was assigned a part of that planning. Now this was carried on from the time they were 9 to 17. There was 3 sections of that camp. One at McGundacook, one at Nicotalis, and
Oh yes, I remember the Nicotalis.
remember the old Nicotalis camp.
Right.
And the seniors moved from one step to the other. Then the intermediates followed, and the seniors would do Katahdin and the Allagash, and they came back, and we were about a week and a half in the camp early in July, and about 3 or 4 days at the end of the season. And these kids would come in their little Lord Fauntleroy suits at 8, 9, and 10 years old, and they had to be put in a suitcase because they went home in dungarees and a plaid shirt.
Were you ever at that camp, Rob?
Was never there.
Never there.
Probably way ahead of my time.
Well, that's right. You know, this man can talk history. Rob Graham, you had a good bird season.
Yes, I did, Bud.
Everybody I talked to has been a bad woodcock season. You tell me you had a great woodcock season.
I did.
And I'm not going to ask you where or where your covers are. How many dogs you working this year?
I'm down to 9 now, Bud.
You're down to 9. And what different breeds?
We've got some short-haired pointers, some English pointers, a Labrador. Did have, in fact, I lost just before the season, a Weimaraner that in 3 seasons had pointed over 700 wild birds.
Really?
Yeah.
And you lost him in what?
6-year-old dog.
How did you lose him?
Stomach bloat, stomach flips, and from eating too fast, and
Wow.
and that. But we had a great season this year.
You sure did. How does this compare with last season?
A little better on the numbers of birds, and I would say we were up, well, we averaged probably close to 25 birds a day, and we were probably up 5 birds a day on the woodcock. And I attribute that, Bud, to moving around to different types of cover as the birds are doing that now more than they ever did.
Where did your hunters come from this fall?
All over the country. They come from on the East Coast as far south as Florida, and out to west. I guess we had them probably from the Chicago area.
And it's the woodcock they seek.
Woodcock
How about
and grouse.
grouse?
They want the grouse.
Do they?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a grouse year do you have?
An average year.
What's an average year in your judgment?
Well, an average year for me, we're going to move on a typical day, Bud, we're going to move a total of 25 birds with a mix of about 2/3 woodcock, 1/3 grouse.
Well, that's a pretty good average.
Yeah, and we did about average. My best day this year, I moved 19 grouse. That's the best day.
Pretty good day, huh, Win?
I would say so.
That's great. That's great. The very fact that he comes from the Camden region's got to tell you something. Now, he wasn't too far away there.
That's right.
The season's over, but, well, you fellows, the Maine Professional Guides Association, have embarked on quite a campaign. Number one, you put out that splendid pamphlet a year ago on places to go in Maine, Maine sporting camps. You graded them and so forth. And if you've not had that in your collection of goodies, you ought to have one, and they're free. Hold that up, will you? Let me show them what it is. Really a great, this is a publication the guides put out a year ago. And if you don't have one of these, you ought to. It ought to be in your collection because it'll tell you just about everything you want to go. But the new project is a thing called a cookbook. Tell me about this.
Well, but it's, as the title implies, the Great Outdoors Wild Game Cookbook. It's a project that's probably was first talked about 2 years ago, and a lot of work was put in by there are really 4 individuals in the organization over the last year, and it's just out now and goes all the way from moose nose to frog.
It sure does.
With a little skunk in between. So,
let me tell you something. I'm just going to pass over these quick. Dan Pelly of Ellsworth got his favorite recipe, crab meat casserole. These are guides, you understand. Tim Farron of Herman, Kennebec crab meat stew. I love that one. Lottie's clam scallop by an old Maine guide, whoever he may be. Now let's see. Patricia Gow of Oakfield, crab meat macaroni casserole. Wiscasset lobster chowder. Doesn't that sound good? Mm-hmm. State of Maine boiled lobster. Why, we know everybody knows how to cook lobster. But let me get into meat here. Fisherman's campsite dinner. I haven't come to my favorite, but I hope I find it. And this is by Eleanor Goodman of Patton. Mark Putnam of Starks, campfire trout. Spring dinner beside a stream by Hank Goodman of Patton. Don Kleiner of Union, grilled trout. Roach trout. Now here's one by Paul Wade of Kakajo. Trout chowder by Raymond, is that Wrightsey?
I believe it is, Bud.
Wrightsey of Canaan. And lake trout, prepared by Richard Wood of Old Town. Freshwater fish trout, and he starts out with Parmesan cheese. Richard Wood of Old Town. Fried trout, you know why Wynn's laughing? He's from the old way of putting them right in the frying pan along the stream. Roast beaver, Tom Davis of Merrill. 1 beaver, skinned and clean, baking soda, salt, sliced onion, strips of bacon, and salt pork. If you just tuned in, this is not Julia Childs. Let me see. Broiled woodcock, the old Maine guide, the old way. Okay. Ken Warmel, one of my favorite people. Woodcock special. 3 woodcock breasts, 3 tablespoons of salt, a cup of barbecue sauce, a cup of red wine, and 2 tablespoons of cider vinegar. That sounds good, Kenny. Woodcock and Apples and Bacon by Robbie Graham. Oh, of Warren. Let me see. What else here we got? We got all kinds of things. Pheasant, how to cook pheasant. Partridge, Mark Putnam. Jim Rothstein. Is this my favorite? No. Jim Rothstein's got one in here. I get to read you if I find it. Anyway, it's a beauty. Minnie Webster of Allen, baked partridge. Boy, that sounds like a good one. Partridge with Apples by Linda Goodman. This is going to be on the newsstands, and if you're looking for something for anyone who likes wild game cooking, you're not going to beat this at Christmas time. Beautifully done. Absolutely beautifully done. You can lay the thing down and go by it. And it's a contribution made possible by the Guides of Maine. Everything from big game, from moose to venison, all kinds of venison recipes. Another small game called the porcupine here, and I'm not going to get into that one. Frog's legs, Rob is right. All kinds of ways to cook frog's legs. Trout parmesan, trout chowder. Rob, it's a great job.
Thank you, Bud. It's everything that you've said, and it's a reasonable price at $9.95.
Good.
The women that that I've shown it to have liked it very much.
Table of contents: deer, bear, moose, hare, raccoon, grouse, pheasant, woodcock, geese, ducks, porcupine, skunk, beaver, muskrat, woodchuck. I can't believe any guide would eat skunk, but anyway, frog. Freshwater fish, trout, salmon, bass, perch, toad, smelt. Saltwater fish, lobster, crab, clam, shrimp, haddock, cod, scallops, and oysters. Baked goods, everything from breads to cakes, muffins, and biscuits. Boy, this is going to be good, I'll tell you. And Wynn was looking this over, and here's a guy who knows how to eat beside a campfire, I can tell you, and it's a good buy. $9.95 if you see it. It's going to be put out with the Maine State Guides, the Maine Professional Guides Association of Maine. It's their second effort. This was the first one a year ago. This is a freebie that you ought to pick up for yourself. This one's going to cost you $9, and it's worth it for Christmas. I think you've done a great job.
Thank you, Bud.
Really have done a great job. Well, old timer, what else you got to tell me?
About what?
Are you going to climb a mountain next year?
If I can get my crew together, I'll have another go at Chimney.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
What's ahead for you, Rob?
Well, we're still on the sea duck hunting. Hopefully we'll have a little warmer weather this December, and the seabirds look good, and we have a lot of fun doing that this year.
You can hunt right into January.
Oh yeah, January 20th.
A lot of birds showing up on the coast?
More than I've seen the past couple of years.
Really? How about
Yeah.
black duck?
A lot of blacks.
But way out. They're
Well,
rafting way out?
I've not been seeing the blacks rafted, but I see good numbers flying around every day when I'm out there. We're after primarily eider.
Eiders haven't really started showing good yet, have they?
Well, there's good native population.
Really?
Yeah, I know one island a couple of years ago, Fish and Wildlife told me there were 1,500 nesting pair, but so those, and I think we may have had some cholera, avian cholera 3-4 years ago, and we're now over that, because I'm seeing more birds than I have in a long while.
Why all the sudden interest in eider duck hunting? And there's a lot of it, resident and non-resident.
Well, I think, you know, they've decreased the bag limits. There's some of that. The people that I see tend to want to come for the trophy. They want the mount. It's
Beautiful, beautiful bird.
oh, they are. Yeah.
Just a spectacular bird.
Yeah.
Boys, that's the end of the trail for tonight. Wynn Robbins of Farmingdale, thank you for coming, and a happy 83rd birthday.
Thank you.
And Rob Graham, to you, the best of luck. And again, I heartily recommend anybody that needs a cookbook for Christmas, think of the Maine Professional Guides Association book, now in the newsstands and available to you. Good night, everyone.